Today we're looking at job number 13080 and it's an Xbox Series S that doesn't display to TV. Now you might be thinking, Joey, why on earth is there all of that Captain tape on the board? And that, my friends, is because somebody has already changed out this HDMI port. If you look close enough on this angle, you'll be able to see a blue coated enameled wire, which by the looks of it has come from Spaghetti Junction and is doing the absolute rounds. I'm going to take you under the scope and we're going to look at this together and see exactly why this isn't displaying an image on the TV. So how are we looking to start with? Right. What's weird about this, looking at it, let me zoom in a bit more. This almost looks like solder paste rather than actual solder. And it also looks like visually that it hasn't fully melted, you know, hasn't fully transitioned from like a wet solder paste to actually soldering the pins to the board. That pin is bent. It doesn't look like any of them so far are loose yet. Let me just give them a little bit of a harder nudge. That one's a little bit loose. That one is definitely loose, this one here. Okay, so yeah, I don't know if this is more so a solder paste rather than solder, you know? I could be completely wrong, but it's the way that it looks. It could also just be A, really bad solder, or B, really bad flux. Slight signs of scuff marks on the ground legs to the left, but can't sometimes be avoided. They've clearly put a lot of solder on the ground legs to make sure that the port is solid. But this wire, right, let's put this flat. So we have clearly a bit of an issue with the data line. So I think this is pin 1, then we have ground, and then we have another data line. Pin number 3, which is the data line here, is the one that is not working and has a ripped trace. But what they've done, they took a ridiculously thick wire, and look how far this goes. And I'm pretty sure from other videos and technicians that I've watched on YouTube, you know, people say that if you have long wires in between data lines, which are essentially differential pairs, you're going to cause issues. I don't know whether that's going to be an issue with artifacting or whether it's going to be some sort of data issue, right? That stops the signal from displaying properly on a TV. So with a wire like this, that's going to happen. But yeah, it's massive. Well, it's huge. I mean, it's definitely soldered to the pin, and I'm going to go ahead and assume it's soldered where we have the trace repair here. But that is a lot of solder on here. I wonder if it's bridged to ground next to it. To check that, trusty old multimeter in continuity mode, which is the mode that beeps when we have a completed circuit. And if let's use ground actually. So I'm going to put the black probe on ground and just touch this here. Yeah, so that's shorted. So there's a short there. And now there's not. But the wire was like this originally, which is touching ground here. So I think that it was touching ground, which is why it wasn't working. Plus, we have a few questionable pins, whether they're actually soldered on. So our first bet is just to completely nuke this port off of the board and have a level playing field and just start from scratch, essentially, and replace the port. We're going to have to do trace repair on that data line, but we will do that when we come to it. So let's get this port off the board. Now, as for getting this off the actual board itself, I'm, again, not going to use my heater. I'm just going to come in from the top, because the solder that's on here I don't think is great, and for that reason I think this is going to fall off relatively easily. So I'm just going full whack here, 500 degrees Celsius with an airflow speed of 120. The back of the port looks really good. I think the solder's definitely gone through and is hugging the ground legs. There is obviously quite a lot of solder that's gone onto the ground pane, so it looks like they've wicked it off potentially. So they've accidentally soldered that and then used wick to try and make it tidy and clean. This port should essentially just fall off. I can see flux coming out the other side, quite a bit of it as well. It's all bubbling now. It's going to fall out any second. There we go. Let's have a look at the actual job itself. I'm going to really quickly come in with, I'm just going to use wick and see if I can wick up the ground holes. Usually I would use my solder sucker, as you guys are aware. Let me just turn that off, give us a bit of a clearer image. Just going to apply some flux and just see if we can clear out these ground holes with my soldering iron, which I don't usually do. But because we have leaded solder here already, God, that stinks, whatever that is. Lord above. Woof! It's got me barking. God, yeah, I don't know what this is. Okay, I think I might have to use my solder sucker. I'll clear these quick. Alright, whilst I'm here, and whilst the board is hot, I'm just going to use some isopropyl alcohol, clean all of this up. So again, we have a nice even playing field. We'll check that wire out in a minute. God, it looks 10 times better. Can we just leave it like that? I am now trying to find my solder sucker, which I had recently, so I don't understand where it could have gone to. Like, where has that disappeared? Happens all the time, this. I've put something down, and it can't go far because of where I'm using that stuff. And do you know what? 9 times out of 10, it's usually right in front of my face. And I just have to kind of, almost have to like, calibrate myself. There we go, got it. See, calibration. I'm going to have to move a few things here. This should come up fairly easy, I hope. Yeah. Which it definitely is. There we go. Nice. Clear ground holes. Okay, let's get this tape off, shall we? Let's see what happens. Oi, oi, oi. When I opened this up and saw Captain Tape, I thought, oh no. You start asking a lot of questions. Okay, that should still be a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Okay, let's clear where that trace is. So we need to go direct from the trace. I need to get some of that solder up, don't I? From the pads. So again, tiny bit of flux. Let's cut our wick because we're a little bit groggy. Come in here. All right, another quick clean. And I don't think the wire was on properly because of the fact it's come off. And I think it only came off when I started cleaning. So I don't think that wire was properly on anyway. Now, 2 ways you could do it. We can just simply, using my new tweezers actually, where are they? My Ineasies. If we just take a tiny bit of wire and we put it exactly the same way that it should be. Tin everything, drop a port on. I think that's going to be our best way. The alternative way would be to drop a port on and then do the trace repair, but I don't know. I just prefer doing it this way. So I'm going to do exactly that. Tin this, re-tin it, and then put a wire going from here down to here. And at this point, you always want to try and make your life as easy as possible. So rotate the board where needed. Apply a little bit of flux. Not too much, so I'll spread it out. Tin our little trace here. Take our wire. Hopefully be able to get right on the end of it. And just stick it here. Scrape that enamelled off. There we go. Looks really good to me. Now I use 2 pairs of tweezers because I'm weird like that. Flatten the wire as much as possible to run along the same track that it did before. Doesn't have to be perfect, but to avoid it bridging with this pad here, I'm actually just going to veer off on a little angle here. Probably like that, I think is our best bet. Yeah, looks good. Take our cutting device and I'm going to cut it here. Try to at least anyway. I think I missed. I'll take a brush and I'll just swipe down with the wire. If, rule of thumb, if this falls off now, it was never fit for purpose. Dry the area off. Make sure we have no IPA. Just straighten that up again. I actually need to trim it a bit more because I don't want it connected to any ground on the actual port itself, you see. I need to come at it from a different angle. And again, just straighten it up. Look at the precision on these tweezers. Now we take our solder mask and I'm just going to put a tiny bit up here. There we go. Nice. Just to secure it on that end. And we can actually go a bit nuts here and put as much as we want. So I'm going to start with a big blob and then just follow the line down probably to about here. Make sure it's still where it should be. Probably say it needs to come over a tiny bit more. And now we cure it. Okay, now we are cured and looking good. We just now need to tin everything up. I mean, it looks like the only pad that is broken, to be fair. The rest look okay, so we don't need to do a trace repair anywhere else. I do need to tin that wire, so I will end up doing that, but I'm just going to prep the ground holes and the rest of the pads. The way I do that is pretty simple and self-explanatory. Flux and lots of solder. There we go. That wire is now tinned as much as it possibly can be. We will need to go over it with an iron anyway. Now go super careful here. I'm going to melt the flux and just dab away. Just melt on the flux. Come over with a cotton bud and just go around it and get all this flux off. There's too much at the moment. Can there be such a thing as too much flux? If you want to keep things clean and tidy, I think so. Just makes it a bit more of an annoyance to clean up, you know, if you have too much on the board. Oh, that wire's broke. Well, I say broke, it's just come out of place. So patience is key. We just need to scrape away without revealing ground or anything some of this solder mask. And just redo that very quick, because these things happen. Okay, is that wire where it needs to be? Tiny bit of solder mask. There goes the other bit of solder mask. The thing that I was literally just scraping off and wouldn't come off, now decides to come off. But we like that. Solder mask is more so to protect the wire from jiggling about and causing another short. More so than this holding it in place. So again, we're going to cure it. I think this is pretty much the same that goes for most technicians, but I could be completely wrong. Trace repair it's not my strongest point, because you don't tend to do it as much, and you know, you only get better at the things you practice. So every time one comes in, I'm like, yes, it's something new to learn and practice and hone in on my skills with, you know. We're just going to drop this into place, and then we'll have to end up soldering the wire anyway. Sorry, the trace, and then we'll just have to go over the pins individually afterwards to make sure that they're all good. Perfect, solder's fallen through. We are just going to place it on. I'm just waving the heat around, make sure that solder goes all the way through on the ground legs. I also want to ensure that I have an even port. There we go. A little love tap there. I'm not seeing solder on the legs yet, so I'm keeping my heat there. Just moved it around. I can see it on most of the legs now. I think it's one on the back right isn't getting it, but just hold it down. It'll come off now. Holding down on that port. Waiting for the solder to solidify. Perfect. And now, because again we have such a beefy board, we need to move quick here, because we want to try and retain as much heat as possible. How's that trace looking? Perfect. In the exact position we need it. Just going to put some flux here. Take our soldering iron. Put a tiny bit of solder on the end of it. And just go over these pins. Perfect. Looking good. Looking really good. Get rid of the flux that we can with the cotton swab, being super careful because we have the trace. Actually have a brush that's really good for this. Let's put some IPA on. And gently clean with a brush. Getting all the places that we need to. How are we looking? Yeah, good, look at that. So that's where we've done the trace repair on that third pin. We don't have any bridges. I'm just going around the area now and giving it a nice clean just to make sure we're all good. And now I'm going to test every individual pin to make sure we are solid. Yeah, the wire moves with the pin. That's really good. All good so far. Everyone seems to be connected. Nice. Check the back. We've got quite a bit of leftover flux here. I think that's from the prior repair. So we'll go over the port here and then clean up that flux. Again, just going to put some heat in the board. Not too much because I do not want this port falling off. That is for sure. Apply little bits of flux. And just round off these solder balls. One stubborn one. Guess that's going to have to do for this one. Looking, in my opinion, a lot better than what it did before. The back, not so much. It wasn't that bad. Let's clean off some of this flux here. There we go. Nice. We are now ready to give this a test. You can probably just about see in the corner behind me, but the Xbox Series S console is fully up and running. Hopefully, as always, we should have another happy customer. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.